Hello, everyone. Welcome to Keep Six, Connect the Six. And this week, again, we have a wonderful young lady, a family member of a very tragic situation that took place in our community. We've lost another young Black male, Chad Facey. And today I have the opportunity of speaking to one of his family member, Renae. Renae, welcome. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for joining me today, but most of all, joining our community. So we have a clear understanding of how you feel about the outcome of the loss of your brother, but also the conviction that was handed down by a judge in Ontario regarding this situation. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Renae.
So, yes, I'm the sister of the deceased, Chad Facey. I'm also a former law student who is now a law graduate, and I also did 2 degrees at York University as well. One was psychology, one was law background, and I'm currently completing my master's degree right now for a different program. Otherwise, me and my brother had a very great relationship. We were very, very close, very inseparable from beginning to end. And something that I always will remember myself thinking was that when he was born, I actually received the birthday gift, which was his life. And I was very fortunate to have such a great brother to be around at all times, someone that I could always bother and never have any issues. And unfortunately, on April 26, 2021, we lost him due to what they say is a brain bleed, which occurred shortly after a transaction with Toronto police. According to the facts of the case, they are saying that there is no direct link or no direct causation between the incident with the police officer and my brother's death. And that's what is on the record. However, I do want to say that I find it unusual that someone who was of perfect health, had no prior health conditions or no prior illnesses, would come back after that transaction in a state like that. And I recall the day that my brother came home and his state was completely different than it was when he left. He was in and out of consciousness. He was trying to formulate sentences, sounded like a broken record. It was very difficult communicating with him um, due to his state. And at the time, we had no idea what was wrong with him. We did not know that he attempted to sell a Kijiji watch. We had no idea what the situation was. At this point, all we had was just a visual representation of him deteriorating before our eyes. And because this happened during the COVID-19 pandemic, we were unable to follow him to the hospital. So he actually died alone in the hospital. And when my mother got the phone call from the hospital, it essentially sounded like they were giving us a warning that he would pass away shortly. So we immediately went to the hospital. And by the time we arrived, he had just passed away. So, those events were very, very tragic. And at that time, as I mentioned earlier, we had no idea what the situation was. We just knew that something happened and we'll never have the answers. But thankfully, due to the investigations being reopened, we were able to get the answers, not that we were looking for, but the answer that we needed to receive. And that's just basically a brief summary of the incident.
Thank you very much, Renee. So, for all of our listeners who don't maybe not be aware, Chad Facey was an 18-year-old Black youth from the Peel region. Apparently, was selling a Apple Watch on Facebook Marketplace. A gentleman replied to the purchasing of that watch, which was a Toronto police officer who attended in Peel region to meet Chad to purchase the watch. Apparently, the transaction took place. $400 was given to Chad. Chad, the officer or the individual, received a watch, what later on turned out to be apparently a not an Apple Watch, but a off the market watch. One officer apparently led chase to Chase and Chad. Another officer that was with him drove in a car to cut him off. The officer caught up to Chad and retrieved the $400 back from Chad, and they left Chad on the ground after tackling him, from what I understand from the statement. And then Chad's friend apparently helped him home. And from there, Chad was pronounced deceased later on in the hospital. Is that somewhat correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. So I just want to say thank you for joining. I became a part of this because the Attorney General had reached out to my organization and to me in regards to a community impact report or statement for the judge for sentencing. Our organization did work on that. I had the opportunity of working on it with other members of the organization and legal team. We submitted that impact statement to the Attorney General office, which in turn the judge received. And was that impact statement read in this summary of the sentencing of this police officer?
Yes, it was.
And unfortunately, he was received, I think, 12 months probation and 3 years weapons ban.
That's correct, yes.
So I've been receiving a lot of calls and people reaching out. I had the opportunity from a very, very prominent defense lawyer in Toronto by the name of Jordana Godless, who had me on her podcast approximately 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago in regards to this particular matter. We discussed the matter on her podcast and had the opportunity of you connecting with you through our social media platform. And here we are. And I felt it was really important for the community to hear from, your family or even, a member of, your brother. And I just wanted to have a discussion with you about how you and your family's coping, but it's overall, even the sentencing. I know there is a big thing when it comes to the criminal code. Lawyers and defendant matters and judges have to have a reasonable doubt, for someone, to be convicted. I know when the officer was initially charged, and I just want to go into it with our community so everyone has a clear understanding. When your brother passed away, when Chad Facey passed away, Peel Regional Police did an investigation after he passed. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And while Peel Regional Police was doing the investigation, they found out that it was a Toronto police officer who was involved in the death, or we consider death of your brother, because initially when Peel Regional Police investigated it, they laid a charge of manslaughter
That's correct.
Right. So with that said, that manslaughter charge was later on dropped to assault.
So it was initially dropped to assault causing bodily harm first.
Okay.
And then after it went through the trial proceedings, it was then downgraded again to assault.
Right. And I mean, this must be something traumatic for you and your whole complete family, even the community. I have young people and people in our community who's reaching out and saying, how can this happen? How? We are going back in time. I mean, I'd just like to hear just from your mental state of mind, the traumatic. I know the loss is very traumatic. I would want to experience it myself, but if you feel comfortable talking about it, just share with me or the community.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. So obviously, there was a lot of media attention regarding this case. So when it initially was in the hands of the SIU, immediately media bombarded us through different social media platforms. Some of them even gained my personal contact information without consent. It was very, very evasive. And initially, we were still just processing the loss and still figuring out how to grieve. And we were kind of denied the opportunity because we were kind of forced into the front of the media coverage and the public eye. So it was just a lot in general, having to deal with all of that. And then having to also grieve the loss of someone who's so significant and so important to us in our lives. So that was one thing. And then it being brought to court also was difficult because we had to, again, relive the experiences. And because I was a witness of his state, I also had to testify on the stand. And that forced me to then have to recall the tragic events that happened prior to him leaving us and going into the hospital. So having to relive that on multiple occasions was definitely very traumatizing for me and traumatizing for those who had to watch as well. So it was just been a lot of negative um, responses, obviously, because this is not a positive thing that can happen to anybody, and I don't wish this for anybody. And it's something that I would always say, like, I can't imagine how that could be, or I can't imagine if that were to happen to me, and then it did. And it's unfortunate because me and my brother would watch the news and see things this would happen to other people, and now having it happen in my own home, it hits a lot harder. So it's been very difficult. It's been 4 years as well, and I feel like each time we take one step forward, we take 10 steps back. First we got the initial charges for manslaughter, then it got downgraded. Then it went to trial, then it got downgraded again. So it's like each time we take 10 steps forward, we're still going back or regressing, and there hasn't been much results on this case that we would like to see. And even regardless of there being a conviction or not, I still don't feel that we received the justice that my brother deserved to receive. Yes, there's a consequence and yes, there's a punishment, but I'm not the judge. Obviously, I can't say what's proportionate or not, but in my opinion, I truly believe that more should be done to account for the action of this officer. I know it's being handled and treated as a simple assault, but it just doesn't make sense to me how a healthy young individual can leave their home and come back in that state after assault and then die shortly after. It's just it's just not adding up to me personally, and it's also adding more to the grieving process.
Yeah, and I can clearly understand that. Now, Renae, with that said, I want to ask, when it comes to the whole trauma situation within for you and your family, what kind of support have you been receiving? Like, have you guys been able to get some counseling and so forth, even from the Attorney General or victim services or something?
So unfortunately, we did not qualify for that. And I had asked the SIU why is that the case, and I was informed that we are only eligible for counseling within 6 months of the death. However, if you guys are aware, we were not notified about this until a year after. So the fact that we were not given that opportunity to receive any type of counseling or any type of support at all in this entire process is shocking to me. And it's very unfortunate as well.
Yeah, I'm very, very sorry to hear that. But I want to let you and your family know that whatever support you guys need for mental health or grieving, is something that Keep Six is more than willing to support you in that. Because I feel I feel very, very bad of the situation, but also I feel, again, it's a very sad situation where it comes to our community. We are always never see justice, and we continue to be suppressed, and our lives don't seem to matter. We're in 2025, but it feels as if it's from the same accountability from 300 years ago, 400 years ago. It's very, very sad, very, very sad. And how is the rest of your family, you know, keeping and coping?
I would say we're all managing as best as we can. Like my mother, for example, she goes to the cemetery pretty much every day to see him and make sure that she's checking on him, which is very nice. and my dad's always been there for her, right behind her all the way through. So it's only the three of us that live in this home at this time right now. So we just do whatever we can to keep his life in our hearts and his spirit in the household. Otherwise, obviously, there's nothing that we can really do to bring him back, but we just try to stay positive and manage each day.
And being a law student and stuff like that, my question is that something you feel that you motivate you more to persist to make changes in policies? And do you feel that accountability within when it comes to our community and situations like these, do you really feel that it's an equal treatment across the board when it comes to the justice system and addressing issues within the Black community?
It's so difficult to say because I don't really feel like there's any actual equality. And if there is equality, it's being applied in a way that doesn't really make sense to me personally. Um, I generally feel like if this happened to someone who may have been of a different race, a different gender, a different age group, the outcome may have been significantly different than it is now. And I believe that if this assault had happened or had been done by another individual as well, the outcome also would have been significantly different. But that's just my personal opinion. Again, like I'm not commenting on the way the judge made her decision. She did it based on her educational background and her experience. But for me, I do feel like the outcome would have been tremendously different if the identities of those people were different.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I was asked the same question in an interview um, a few weeks back, and my exact response was, if it was a Black youth and had the same exact situation with a white youth, I guarantee you he would have had a second-degree murder and maybe dropped down to manslaughter, but he would have been doing at least a 10-year sentence. That's what minimum or a 12-year sentence. There was no doubt about it. When it comes to a situation like this, and you and your family is impacted tremendously by it, and other community members, people that don't even know you guys, but I've been following the situation, and it's been impactful to them. What do you feel as you're what we'd call a next generation, and you studied law and so forth? What do you feel that would be a measure when it comes to addressing situations like this? How do you feel that someone could oversee to make sure that we are our issues are addressed and matters like this is dealt in fairness? Let's use that word, fairness.
Very good question. Um, I unfortunately, now that I've been in the situation myself, I don't even see any fairness in this justice system. The threshold for the criminal justice system we can't change, but it's a beyond a reasonable doubt. You have to be able to prove something 100%. That's almost impossible for certain situations, and I feel like it's unfair that that's the threshold for something like this, and that is why the consequence is the way it is, and that's why the consequence is unfair. So it's difficult to really answer that question. I don't even know if there is a solution or if there is a way that things can become fair in the justice system if this is the way that our laws are made. I feel like they're not made in a way that is applicable to real life situations.
Okay, and thank you. And now, do you feel that when it comes to the Black community, do you feel that situations are dealt with fairly, even within the justice system, or is it a two-tier system?
It's definitely a two-tiered, maybe even a three-tiered, four-tiered. I'm not sure, but I definitely don't think that this system is made to serve any benefit to people that are Black. And it's unfortunate because we live in one of the most multicultural cities and one of the most multicultural countries in the world. However, we know based on statistics that Black individuals are disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system. And it is very, very evident that there are situations where they are in this criminal justice system in an unfair manner. So I would say that there is a lot of work that needs to be done. I don't know what steps can be taken to get there, but I feel like we need to have less people or less Black people in the jails and more of them on the other side, more of them in the criminal justice system in terms of occupation. And I think we need to do a lot more improvement in that aspect.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I can echo that because I've had several individuals within the justice system. I have the opportunity of supporting some men and women, and one of the things they speak about is not being able to have access to people that looks like them
Mhm.
or can register with their difficulties or where they're from and so forth, or their culture. And that's when even a mental health um, psychiatrist or psychologist, psychotherapist, someone that they can have that looks like them, that can relate to. So that is something that's been echoed not just by you, but by individuals. That's behind, that's behind the wall and so forth. You know, it's very, very something that's needed. Um, with this whole situation and the loss and the trauma that your whole family is going through, where do you see? Are there a time that you see that you or your family member might be able to get some kind of a closure or peace within your soul? I mean, you can't bring him back. You
Mhm.
can't take back what the judge's decision was. The officer is currently still getting paid, so he still has a paycheck from the Toronto Police Board. He still has a job. One of the things is I learned this was that because he's sentenced to a probation, that means he does not lose his job and he still gets his salary or pay and so forth. And from my understanding, once he's finished his probation, I think he's able to even have a job or go to work on a duty where a desk duty or something like that, from what I gathered from speaking. Uh,
Yes, that is correct. So, um, of course, it will be a modified duty because part of his job is to carry firearms. But that obviously does not apply to him. So technically, he can still work, but it's up to the Toronto Police Service if they want to have him continue on in this capacity, which I can't really speak to because I'm not too sure what's going to happen in regards to that. But that's where it stands right now.
right. So speaking of the Toronto Service Board, they have an investigation going on with them also that I think they reopened regarding the shooting that took place with him.
Yes, there is another case ongoing. I don't want to speak to it too much as I don't have all the information for it, but yes, there's another outstanding case with the same accused.
Yes, I learned that the other day. So that's another uh, situation that has to be addressed. And that is just internally within the Toronto Police Board for them to address that. Um, never stops. Now, regarding everything that we've gone through in society and life for hundreds of years, do you feel that things are changing for the better for us as an individual? Or do you feel that we're still in that same stage from 300 years ago, but only the difference is that we're in 2025?
That one for sure. I feel like there has been very minimal, if not no improvement from the barbaric times till now. I still don't understand why we've ever had racially based convictions um, and things like that. I never understood it. but it's something that has been an ongoing problem for years, and there has been very little done to actually make that positive change to get us back to a normal point. And like I said earlier, like if the identities of these individuals were different, I generally believe the outcome would be so much more different. It should not be this way. We should be making our actions based on not the color of the skin, but the content of the individual's character. And I feel like that is something that has been missing for years in all aspects of life, and nothing has been done to fix it.
Yeah. One of the things I continue to say is that accountability, that is a key word. We cannot have situations take place with your ordinary civilian in our community, and then something happens where within the law enforcement, these individuals, like a police officer, is held at a very much higher standards
Yes.
than you and I in everyday life, right? So it's always my question is, how is it that these individuals are supposed to be held at a higher standard, but there's no accountability when it comes to their action, right? That
Yes.
is something that I find very disturbing, right? And it kind of brings me back to what I see is going on in the United States with their president over on the other side of the border.
Right.
It's kind of like the Wild West. I can do whatever I want. I can, sit behind the union and, um, I never have to worry about accountability, right? And until I think the justice system start holding individuals accountable and, really make it known that you are responsible and you are held at a very high standard for your action and hold them accountable.
Mhm.
Things will continue to be the way it is. All right. And that's my take. As for your family, I know you have another sister, is that correct?
Yes. So I have two older sisters as well.
Right. And how are they coping? Are they able to function, work every day, or are they? Because a lot of time people go into depression, and so forth.
Yeah. So it's definitely been challenging for them as well. Um, Especially because they don't live in this home. So obviously, they didn't see him as recent as we did. We saw him the morning of and the night before. So obviously, for them, it hit a little bit differently. But they are doing their best. They are still working and they're doing their best with what they have to do. They both have one daughter each, which was my brother's nieces. So they're doing what they can to protect them as well, and they're also educating the younger children of what has happened as well, so they understand what's going on. So yes, we're all managing very well, or as well as we can be.
Right. Thank you. Okay, Lewis. Now, I know that this is very, very impactful for you and it can, bring back trauma. And again, I want to make it clear to you that you know, we are more than willing and we're offering support to you if needed, even after this interview. If you feel that, it's been traumatic for you and you need to speak with someone, we do have a psychotherapist who I am more than willing to connect with you and you can speak with her also, right? I just want to say that to you.
Thank you.
Um, but before we go, I would just like to ask you I would like something really positive, a message from you to pass on to our community and our young people.
Okay, sure. What I can say is that this has taught me that life is short, which I know is negative, but if you want to put a positive spin on that, just cherish your loved ones and tell them you love them, give them hugs, check on them, do what you can to make sure you cherish those moments because you never know when the last one will be. I think that's so important. We can't be taking life for granted because there's so much beauty in life that we often overlook. I think we need to take more time to enjoy life and make sure we're getting it to the fullest.
Thank you so much, Renae. I appreciate that. Folks, thank you so much for joining us at Keep Six, Connect the Six. You can follow us on our YouTube, on our Instagram, or also on our Facebook, keep6.org, or Keep6org and all social media platform. Stay tuned for other important conversation we'll be having with community members. It's Renae again. My deepest condolence to you and your family. And, we are here to support you in any way that we're able to, your family member. And, you're welcome to reach out at any time. Folks, thank you again, everyone, for joining us again tonight. And we look forward. And if you ever need to reach us, you can always reach us also at 1-800-640-3075. Keep Six Nonprofit Organization. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you as well. Take care.